Reddit. What innocent behaviors have you changed out of fear you might be accused of wrongdoing? Story 1, I don't volunteer with kids as much. I've got 4 kids, 3 the same age, so when my kids were in the nursery at church, my wife typically volunteered from time to time. I stepped in to do her shift one week when she was sick. About 15 minutes in, I was told that having a male in there made other parents uncomfortable. Out of 5 kids in there, 3 of them were mine. Edit to preemptively answer some questions, 1 not triplets. We started an adoption and then conceived twins, so our youngest 3 kids are 7 weeks apart in age. 2 was 11 years ago. We have long since left that church. 3, it doesn't matter that it was a church. Other churches have not done this at all. This was one single parent doing this. Volunteers with scouts, sports, schools, etc. could also run into this problem just as easily in a non-religious setting. Some parents are just that way. Story 2, walking behind women. Especially at night and/or if they're alone, it seems like I'm following them or something when I'm just trying to get to a destination. I try and cross the road if I can, but it's proper alarm bells if the woman does it too. And what can I do? Shout, hey, I'm not weird. Don't be afraid. I'd be better just sitting and waiting for them to get far ahead. Story 3, I've been getting driving lessons recently. And after the first one, the instructor dropped me off. And when we were organizing new lessons, we just said we would meet at the same place. It's outside of school. We probably met there about 10 times at various parts of the day in a car with massive driver learning school stickers all over it. A woman came up to me yesterday, has told me how it was weird that 2 men met there and how people were talking and how there were weirdos about who people thought were selling drugs and how we wouldn't want anyone thinking we were weirdos. I just kind of laughed and said, okay, thanks. We'll meet somewhere else in future. But she just kept on and on. I had to walk away when she was in mid-sentence. It was pretty insulting. Story 4, I work as a manager at a fast food place, so I work with a lot of teenagers. Pretty much I have to play people are lava, so I don't accidentally bump into one of them. We've had a lot of young managers date the crew and do inappropriate things, so I want no part of that liability. Story 5, I completely ignore kids. I don't look at them. I don't talk to them. I pretend they don't even exist. The last thing my long-haired, goateed self needs is to be accused of being a kid diddler. Story 6, compliments to strangers who contend workers. Nice shoes, nice shirt, hair, etc. I keep it limited to that. Say nothing physical personality-based. Story 7, when shopping with my wife, and she wants to try stuff on, I just have her text me pictures of her outfits if she wants my opinion. We were at Macy's a few months ago, and I was just patiently waiting outside the dressing room waiting for my wife, and she would open the door and step out to get my opinion. I was just looking at my phone and minding my own business when I noticed people walking up to me. A middle-aged woman had gotten a manager, and she had brought a security official of some type and asked me to leave, or they would be forced to call the police. It was super embarrassing, and now I feel super self-conscious when shopping with my wife. Edit, I checked my phone after cutting grass and saw all the comments. I figured I'd add that I didn't say anything because I'm not a fan of confrontation and I'm a 0-100 kind of guy when it comes to emotions, so the best option was for me to leave. Story 8, sticking to myself at shopping centers. I'm a tall 63, bearded man who grew up in a small town of about 800. So I grew up holding the door for anyone, saying a nice day or howdy everywhere I go, and help anyone with anything if they need it. It's just how I was raised. One day, I was headed to my girlfriend's house and decided to stop at Walmart to grab some snacks on the way down. I was 20 years old at the time, but for as big as I am and the beard, you could confuse me for 25 to 30. Anyhow, I was standing in the chip aisle and noticed a little girl no older than 5 wandering around looking frightened. So I walked over and said, "Are you lost?" And she just kept saying, "Mommy." So instantly trying to do the right thing, I thought to take her to the cashier, so she may call over the loudspeaker and call for her mother. As I walked, she held her hand up to hold mine, and I thought nothing of it, being as I was only doing the logical thing. Next thing I know, the mother runs up to me screaming and snatching her daughter up, calling me a kidnapper and threatening to call the police. I tried explaining the situation and where I was trying to take her. Unfortunately, she was an uneducated moron, and at that point I got a little heated and decided to tell her to maybe not let her child run off next time. Moral of the story, I try to do the right thing, not even thinking about how it would look for a bearded man to be walking with your little girl, even though they shouldn't have been left alone, but it's definitely something you'll never do again. Edit, didn't think this would blow up. I gave it my best shot trying to respond to everyone, but when I came back to 100 replies, I lost track a little. Story 9, I don't help people get through subway turnstiles anymore. I've told this story before, but whatever, here goes. A while back, I was entering the NYC subway, and the person in front of me was struggling with the turnstile. She had just swiped her Metro card too slowly, and it didn't register. She tried again, and it worked, But when she went through the turnstile, the rolling luggage she was pulling along was too far back. It wasn't going through with her, and to make things more confusing, the bag blocked the turnstile from letting her through. I tried to explain to her what was going, but she replied back in French, I'm pretty sure, and well, I don't speak French, so I pointed down at her bag and said, your bag, and pointed to the turnstile. She was confused and tried to swipe her card again, which not only wouldn't have helped, but would have double charged her. So I quickly put my hand on the card swiper to stop her and said, don't worry, it'll help. At that point, I grabbed the handle of her bag, the one attached to the bag itself, not the telescoping one she was holding, and told her to go through the turnstile. Go. I lifted her bag over the turnstile as she walked through, helping her past it. I had done a good deed, except she apparently didn't see it that way. I think she thought I was stealing her luggage because the look on her face was shocked horror, and she ran from the turnstile as fast as a 54-person with a too big bag can run through the NYC subway, saying something like no, no, no the entire time. Story 10, I'm very paranoid about my interactions with young females now. When I was 13, my younger sister was 5. We would have wrestling matches where she would attack me, and I would do the basic over-the-top WWE wrestling throws and moves ending with me tickling her into submission. She would scream wrestle. I throw her, repeat until she's bored. Basic big brother stuff in my eyes. Fast forward, she told her mom, she's my half-sister, that I wrestle funny word for word. That's what she said, her crazy mother. Next thing I know, I'm knee deep in a child abuse case and being investigated by CPS. Of course, it was determined nothing happened, but it tore our blended family apart. Ever since then, I'm paranoid about any one-on-one interaction with a young kid, especially a female with no other adults or witnesses present. I understand being cautious and reporting suspicious behavior, but my sister saying I wrestle funny, shouldn't my life up? Story 11, I stopped shaving my head. I used to do it just because it was easy and I hate going to the barber. I had a couple buddies who also had their heads shaved, one because he was pretty much bald by 18, and the other because he had surgery that required it and just started keeping it that way. One day, as we were walking through the mall after seeing a movie, I noticed that people were moving to the opposite side of the walkway as we made our way through the mall. Suddenly it hit me. We were 3 white guys in leather jackets with shaved heads. We looked like skinheads. I never shaved my head after that. Story 12, being friendly or helping children. I was walking home from work along a very busy street. Loads of pedestrians, a little girl around 4 maybe, not sure, run past me from behind and face-planted to the ground. Looks really sore. She has a few DVDs and they scattered across the ground. I immediately stopped and knelt down. I handed her one DVD and then asked if she was okay. She didn't respond, looked around for a parent, but couldn't see one. I just wanted to help, but I'm a man, so I totally didn't feel I was allowed to. Another guy stopped and seemed concerned, looked at each other, and that was about it. Luckily, her mom appeared, thanked us, and checked she was okay. I just left. I'm annoyed I wasn't able to help. Story 13, I won't give women of any age compliments. Not too long ago, I was shopping at a local grocery store and saw a girl, maybe 26 to 27, who had this awesome bright orange hair. When I walked by, I mentioned it. Hey, I love the hair color. It looks fantastic. She reported me to the store saying I was soliciting her. I'm a clean-cut 21-year-old guy who had a cart full of groceries. Story 14, I don't take my nieces or nephews to the park anymore, unless one of my sisters or my fiancé is with me. I used to do it all the time, but the women at the work would always give me evil looks. A couple of times I had the cops on me for acting suspicious, since I was a lone male at the park staring at children. In reality, I was keeping a close eye on my 3-year-old niece, 2-year-old niece, and 6-year-old sister. Once I got everything clear with the cops, they asked me not to come back as I kept making people uncomfortable. Story 15, I used to love volunteering to help children in children's programs. Growing up, these programs helped me so much with school and life, and I wanted to give back and pass along the good deed, whether it be for church, school, or whatever else. I wanted to help out. I just liked helping kids. That all changed the day someone accused me of being a pervert and a child molester. At the time, I was working at a small chain department store. This little boy, about 6, came up to the customer service desk at the front because he had been separated from his mom. Smart kid. So I picked the kid up, sat him on the desk, and gave him a piece of candy to chew on while we waited for his mom. I made an announcement over the intercom, and 5 minutes later, here comes his mom, almost running up to customer service, with a very concerned look on her face. She pulls the kid off the counter, and before I can say a word, she's making him spit out his candy, and looking him over to make sure he was okay. She looked back at me and loudly asked, "What did you do to my son? What did you give him?" Some people started staring in our direction, and I started to get nervous. I tried to explain the situation, but she wasn't having it. She was convinced I had done something with her son, like I was trying to take him. The more of a scene this woman made, the more people were staring. After about 3 minutes of this, the woman just leaves. She grabs her son by the wrist and just leaves. I didn't know what to do. I stood there, embarrassed and upset and confused about the whole situation. I couldn't wrap my head around how something so innocuous could have led to such a huge scene. Living in a small town, word got around quickly. I started getting funny looks at work from customers. Parents stopped bringing their children to the after-school arts class I was co-tutoring. Some of the parents at church stopped bringing their kids. Because I was there, these people had known me for years. And just because of a rumor some crazy lady was spouting, my name was being dragged through the mud. In the months that followed, I was kicked out of the tutoring program, I stopped going to church, and I was moved from my comfortable customer service desk job to organizing the stockroom during my shifts. I ended up moving away that summer for college, and in the years that I was gone, the rumors only got worse. This was a time before I had joined any social media. MySpace was big at the time, so I didn't have much way to keep in touch with any of my friends from home aside from a few phone calls every month. The news was slow, but the consensus remained the same. More than a few people believed I had been arrested on child molestation charges. Despite the fact that there were no arrest records, my name never appeared on any court documents, and anyone that really knew me knew I was away at college. All of that has been about 10 or 11 years ago now, and it's mostly passed from people's minds now. Every now and again, one of my friends will bring it up, but I do everything I can to avoid thinking about it. I truly believe that one incident changed my entire life. Edit Gold. Thanks, kind stranger. I accept with utmost gratitude. Edit 2 guys. No. Legal action is the last thing I want to do. Nothing can change the past, and stirring up old is only going to make my current life stink. Story 16. When hanging out with my nieces, I didn't give about hugging them or playing with them or holding their hand in public. Normal human being, which they often initiate. Now, I often think, oh, everyone is going to think I'm some kind of pedo. Story 17, I work in hospitals a lot. Being a big dude around a lot of young, tiny nurses is asking for trouble. Sometimes I need to ask them for things which requires them to walk to a windowless supply closet. It's a spacious room that locks from the outside, and from the inside, the supply closets are also safe rooms in case of active shooter events. First time I asked for something, I followed the female nurse into the supply closet. The door slammed shut behind me. I didn't really think anything of it, but she slowly turned to look at me with a terrified look on her face. I now hold the door open and wait outside when I need something. Story 18, I'm a large dude. I seem to get more scared of this at work. I've been told I'm intimidating in meetings. I pay close attention to my tone and body language now. I stare at the elevator doors with my headphones on, especially when a lady gets on. When the kids' charity uses our offices for events every few weeks, I go to a different floor to use a private bathroom, so I'm not alone in a public bathroom with any kids. I volunteer at Cub Scouts. No parent or scoutmaster, predominantly male, is allowed to take the children anywhere alone, not even let them play in the gym after the pack meeting. A female colleague was leaving the company. I offered a handshake. She asked for a hug, which I gave. I told her that in a company with 60 women, you never assume a hug. She nodded and said, fair point. I have a bad back. I asked for a place to lay down occasionally during the day for short periods of time. They told me to use the wellness room, which is built for and decorated for nursing moms, and it's outside the women's bathroom. I told them a 64 dude with a beard laying on the floor outside the women's bathroom is not a good look. They agreed. I lay on the cold tile of the handicapped bathroom now. All it takes is an accusation, even if wholly unfounded. The conversation will always be there. I make sure I don't even put myself in that situation. However, I'm also father to 4 kids, 2 of which are girls. I've never had a problem or a strange look from any parents while playing with or watching my kids. I think that's because I'm engaged with them and playing with them. They call me dad a lot, and we're all affectionate. Context clues help in this case. Story 19, going out of my way to try and connect with women I'm interested in, or just friend for that matter. When I talk with friends and hearing from other women about how creepy some men are because they try to make plans with someone they are interested in, it scares me that I am doing the same thing. When people stop texting me, I don't try and restart conversation later on in fear. I am acting desperate or clingy. I give women too much space when I feel that they need it, and then they get mad because I didn't try and rekindle the relationship. That's how my last relationship ended. It's something I want to work on, but that constant nagging in my head that I might be too creepy-clingy keeps me from trying. Story 20, checking the clock at the gym. Sounds stupid, but there's a reason. I like to time my rest between sets and can't be bothered setting a timer on my phone. Anyway, the clock is over the cardio section of the gym, bikes, cross trainers, etc., and is almost always occupied by women. Only recently, I realized it totally looked like I was checking out chicks' asses and not a subtle way, and so I had to stop. Story 21, helping children. Growing up, I've always wanted to help people, so I joined the police. I've got a good career ahead of me. I've waved at children before because they waved at me, either because they've seen me in my patrol car or because they're being children. I wave back. I got called a pedophile. I overheard a conversation about a lost child inside a clothing store, and I found him. I knelt down, told him my name, and that I was a policeman. I took him by the hand and returned him to his mother and the security guard again. I got called a pedophile, and both of these incidents, it was my then-girlfriend who said it. Story 22. I see lonely and miserable-looking kids when I go to the park with my nephews, and I try to get them to go at least ask if they want to play hide and go seek or some game while I chill. If they don't want to, then I keep walking and thinking about how they must feel. Breaks my heart, man. Story 23 for me. Mostly being very aware around kids that are not my own. I have a 12-year-old boy who is now very active at playgrounds, but still needs a lot of attention when there. This occasionally brings me into contact with other kids. I feel very anxious at times with this. If they talk to me, I try to respond with non-committal answers. If they fall over, I'm going to think twice before going over to help, for fear of people thinking bad things are afoot. My wife has no such issues. She can talk to other kids all day and it not be weird or anyone question her. It is sad. Being a dad is the best part of my life, and I love kids. I'm a softie, but we are now paying the price for the evil in the world. Story 24. When I take my nieces to the park, I typically bring my girlfriend along. My nieces are mixed races, so some look kind of like me. Others don't. Funny thing is that my girlfriend is a totally different race, so the third one than me and my nieces. But just having a woman there makes me feel more relaxed. Story 25. Well, apparently, I'm oblivious as a woman. I've never thought someone was stalking me, or that the man-child duo was some sort of perversion, or think every man that strikes up a conversation with me is trying to get into my pants. These people need therapy. I did ask a male coworker this question. His response was that he is the main grocery fetcher in the family, and that sometimes he'll run into the same woman repeatedly as he shops. He says after the first 2-3 times, he'll purposely go to the opposite end of the store and start shopping from there. Apparently, a woman accused him of following her a couple years back at Kroger and threw a fit to the point the cops were called, and he's afraid it will happen again. Story 26. For some reason, I get watched heavily when I go into some stores, so I try to avoid putting my hands in my pockets and going around corners or blind spots. Story 27. For some reason, people told me not look them in the eyes since it made them feel uncomfortable, so now I just glance away from their eyes every few seconds. Story 28. Went on a walk today and walked past an open carport stuffed within boxes. I gave a glance as I walked by and got glared at by a woman who obviously thought I must be casing her junk pile for a future robbery. Spent the rest of my walk looking at my feet. Story 29. When walking at a faster pace than women, overtaking them is tricky. You have to overtake very quickly, so they don't have time to worry and just think you're in a hurry to get somewhere. If you're only walking 10 faster than them and you're slowly coming behind them, they're going to get weirded out. So yeah, I change my methods and pace when overtaking a woman while walking at a faster pace than her. Story 30. As a teenager, I spent many times at a bus stop freezing my off, baking in the sun, or being soaked by the rain. As a result, I always promised myself that when I was older and driving a car and I spotted someone out in harsh conditions that I would offer that person a ride to wherever they were going. Now, however, my desire to not be arrested prevents me from even presenting the offer. Story 31. Never ever make first physical contact of any type with a woman I do not know well, for fear of being branded creepy. If a woman decides to touch me, that's fine, but it makes me somewhat uncomfortable. Story 32. How about the opposite to brighten your day? I'm about 6 tall, 230 pounds with a long beard. Was traveling recently, full flight, sat next to a young couple with about a 2-year-old girl. We hadn't taken off yet, and she was already fussing until she saw me. She looked at me and gave me a big smile, like a serious day, brightening smile. Hesitantly, I smiled back, knowing the parents would probably take me for a pedo low, and behold, they didn't. Instead, I got to meet a wonderful family and made a new best friend. The little girl, we played patty cake, read books, etc., and I even held her for a bit so her folks could eat their in-flight meal. It was a win for me. A young couple had faith. I wasn't a pervert. The little girl had a great flight, and I met great people. Story 33. As an instructor for marching band, I am acutely aware of how I must speak to my female students. There are certain sayings I do not use, and I do not presume to touch the students despite that being a common technique for a visually oriented activity. Even slight things as a tap on the shoulder to let them know to relax or to stop scrunching up. Also, I do not friend any of my students on Facebook. I have to ardently keep those professional boundaries separate. Story 34. Being friendly towards women. Apparently, that comes off as I'm trying to get into their pants. Interestingly enough, I just want to talk. Is that so much? Story 35. When I was younger, I always used to tell parents they had a cute baby or something like that. As I get older, it gets more creepy, I find. Am a guy edit. So TIL, there's mixed opinions about complimenting baby children. For my own mental health, I am not commenting on baby children anymore. Seems to be the simplest route. Story 36, late to the party, and this will be buried. Blah blah, I'm a single man working in a Roman Catholic church and working with kids. It's an unwritten but clearly understood rule that if I were accused of anything inappropriate with a child, even if it was groundless, I would be put on leave and then discreetly fired. Even if the accusation was withdrawn, no church could hire me again because the accusation would follow. End of career. So nearly every interaction with children follows habits and routines of protecting myself. Never in a room alone with kids. Never showing a preference or favoritism. I sometimes intentionally forget details about the kids, specifically the high school girls, so that I fit in the zone of someone who cares but doesn't care too much. It's honestly exhausting to work with teenagers and kids and sincerely want the best for them and advocate for them, but also protect myself because any one of them could end my career on a moment's notice unless I am completely above even suspicion. Story 37, almost every response is either interacting with women as a male B, interacting with children as a male my response, taking pictures of anything in public for fear of someone thinking I'm recording or taking a picture of them. Story 38, feels bad to say, but actually interacting with women I don't know in public. One time I was exiting the train to go home from uni, and I was walking behind a lady, and she dropped one of her smaller shopping bags on the ground. I bend down to pick the bag and call out to her, but she doesn't hear. Not wanting her to lose her shopping. I jog up and touch her on the shoulder to get her attention. She spins around and yells in my face that she doesn't want to talk to me and that she has a boyfriend. Needless to say, I was so embarrassed being basically berated as being some predator on a platform full of people. I promptly show her the bag, and her expression changes into this sheepish look, and she says, "Sorry, I thought you were that." I dropped the bag at her feet, walked away without saying anything, and promised myself never to help a human being again as I was walking away. Obviously, my thoughts changed after I cooled off, but being shouted at by some women, I was only trying to help just because of my gender really touched a nerve for some reason. Story 39, walking down the street, taking my friends' kids to the park, looking at people, talking to people, holding the door for people, asking women out on dates, going to bars, compliments, pretty much any form of human interaction with an unknown member of the opposite at this point. Why? Because I spent 2 hours in a holding cell for the grievous crime of taking my roommate's kids to a public pool. When I was babysitting them, 2 bottle blonde trophy harpies called the cops on me, and by sheer force of shrieking actually convinced them to cuff me and take the kids and I to the police station. Roommate had to drive back from his vacation an hour away with his wife to pick up the kids. The kicker, I had anticipated this and recorded a video on the phone of us and the kids, and his wife explaining that I was a trusted family friend and godfather before they left, and even showing it to the women and the officers I was still detained. All men are murder rapists until proven otherwise. Story 40, a lot of these are about being around children and the likes of, but I often see a man walking his daughter to school and home every day when driving and no one thinks anything of it. Even on buses, no one thinks that a man walking with his child is strange. Story 41, take cutlery on picnics. Had a cop slam on his brakes and vault a fence to confront me for brandishing a knife, while I spread peanut butter on my 3-year-old sandwich at the playground, offered the good officer a snack. Story 42, although I know this question is more socially oriented, I will weigh in on test taking. I am very paranoid about being wrongly accused of cheating. Even though the last time I cheated was years ago, I get very anxious and look at my paper a lot. And when I do look up to ponder, I look at my teacher exclusively, which of course in turn raises more suspicion toward me due to the good old, the only reason you would look at me is to see if you can cheat. Besides that, talking to people in unsociable places of the world, you just get weird or blank looks. Story 43, I was afraid of ever initiating any kind of contact with any woman for fear of being accused of being creepy, annoying, or harassment. I was even afraid of one night, stands for fear of false rape accusations. Luckily, I'm married now, thus my life is over anyway. Story 44, complimenting women after I got married. Seems everybody takes it as a dating request and either starts flirting hard or rejects loudly. Both sounds like I intended to cheat on my wife. Story 45, all these comments about not being allowed to interact with children, and people still wonder why men tend to be less engaged with their children in general. Story 46, I don't start conversations with women, especially if they're younger or more attractive than me, which is pretty easy. I'm married and not trying to sleep with you. I just saw the book you're reading, your bumper sticker, your t-shirt, and we share an interest. Idea like a conversation and maybe a new friend. Nope. Half the human race is unapproachable because I must be hitting on them. Edited TO, ADD, this isn't a maybe. When I open with, "Oh, cool, I like Lovecraft too," and get back, "I have a boyfriend, lady," unless your boyfriend is a fisherman who worships Dagon. That is not the direction this chat should have gone. Story 47, not male, but a lesbian. It's pretty visible. I acknowledge that I probably seem less creepy than guys, but I still find myself avoiding looking at cute women. I compliment them, but on clothes, not looks, I don't find myself making any close straight female friends after having come out 7 years ago. Too many problems with "Are you hitting on Mato? You like me that way." So, I'm effectively socially treated like a guy in all straight contexts, my friend, and I do guy things together, and I'm go to his bachelor party instead of his fiance's bachelorette. Story 48, I won't even talk to small kids unless their parents are in earshot. I'm a mechanic and covered in tattoos, so people are already thinking I'm up to some, but little boys especially like to look at what I'm doing to their parents' car. I used to let them watch and answer questions, and we even had company pocket screwdriver's ID give kids till I had some soccer mom, like Speed, walk up to me and ask me what I was saying to her kid. Now I just won't even acknowledge them unless they're about to do something they shouldn't do, like walk into the shop or touch something hot. P.S. Not exactly on topic, but one time my little niece told her mom, who hates me, I did the pickle dance with her. It was super messy until I could show her an Instagram of me dancing holding a pickle. She loves pickle. It seemed like the right thing to do when getting her to not cry. Story 49, apparently using the term female instead of woman-girl is too technical and possibly offensive to some. I personally don't really see an issue with it, since I would not have a problem if someone used males instead of men, guys. Story 50, I've stopped smiling at women. It's weird, I guess I used to be pretty good looking. Women used to smile back when I smiled at them. I could have a conversation, flirt a little, all harmless and fun. Then a dog tore off the center of my face, and a talented Dr. Soda back on. Now women act like I am coming at them with a syringe if I say hello. Story 51, well, something I haven't changed, and will try not to, is treating friends who are women the same as friends who are men. I like to be nice to people, but for some reason, if I say nice things to a male, nobody bats an eye, but if I say nice things to a lady, I'm desperate. Story 52, when I make tea, I like it milky. So usually the final color is pretty white. My housemates literally complain every time they see me making it this way, telling me I'd be unfit to ever serve tea to people. Whenever I make tea next to them now, I have to use less milk. Whenever they're not in the room, I have to sneak away with my white tea. Story 53, complimenting any woman. No matter how well-intentioned, it just takes one person to be offended by proxy for your whole world to come piling in. Especially as if you're a man, you're guilty by default. Story 54, when I look around when talking to girls, I have to make an effort to not look down when I divert me eyes, and just try to avoid excessive eye contact, but everyone assumes I'm checking out breasts. Story 55, I live in a very small town at the moment, where our only gym options are awful, so instead, around noon, I usually go for a walk. My walk takes me past the school, since there's a conniving store across from the school. One day, while in the store, women approached me and asked why I was buying candy, and then mentioned it's creepy that I always walk past the school to buy stuff. First off, it was a Cliff Bar. Second off, turns out she was one of the kindergarten teachers and watched me walk past the school each day around noon. I told her it was more creepy that she was watching me, and promptly left. Since then, I go to a different conniving store. Story 56, do you want to get real here? Because it'll get real here. Nothing a man does anymore can be construed as innocent. It's either anti-feminist, bigoted, creepy, perverted, closed-minded, insensitive due to toxic masculinity, abusive, abrasive, confrontational, or simply because it gives off a bad vibe. If there's one thing our modern-day society loves to do, it's to use men as a punching bag. Why? Because they can get away with it. It's not like anyone's going to come to defend men. They're the cause of every bad thing that has happened to society within the last 6,000 years. So it doesn't matter what we do now. We're simply going to need to take every punch that society is going to throw at us. So, yeah, the answer is everything. Story 57, everywhere. Don't talk to kids, especially if they're alone far away from their parent. When walking behind a woman, I usually give the intentional foot scuff to make it known that I am there, and then pick up speed to pass them or cross the street if I've been following behind them for too long. Pretend to forget a woman's name when I know I'm creepy good at remembering faces and names. If we've met once, I will remember. It's way easier to pretend. I don't know when 14 of the time you get the who is this creepy dude that is clearly obsessed with me. Look, I've only had it backfire once where she remembered my name, but I had pretended not to recall hers. At work, no compliments to women on clothing or appearance. No physical contact with women, even ones I know very well, and that occasionally do it to me. When talking to a woman, break eye contact by looking to the side rather than looking down on the bus. Eyes down or straight ahead, and hands up on the bar if standing at the gym. If I'm going to space out, stare at the ground, wow. Reading through all of those makes it sound like I'm just running around, dragging my feet on the ground while looking down at the ground with my arms up in the air. Sounds about right, see? Not creepy at all.